Now, $1,000 is going out this week. Many low-income households can now qualify and receive an extra $1,100 in new inflation checks. This extra relief money can be used to pay for bills or everyday necessities, especially as the cost of living continues to rise. Now, inflation reached a peak in June at 9.1%, the highest it's actually been in 40 years. And with gas prices, groceries, and other living expenses increasing throughout 2022, many states have responded by providing inflation relief checks. According to CNBC, at least 17 states are giving out some form of inflation relief to the residents right now. It's very good news. In particular, Pennsylvania is offering inflation relief checks to low-income homeowners. Those who qualify for the property tax, rent, and rebate program will get a one-time tax rebate. To qualify, homeowners must be 65 and older, or widows and widowers, 50 and older, or people with disabilities 18 and older. According to CNBC News, this rebate is a bonus in addition to one sent down in 2021. The rebate should be sent by the end of the month. It will have the amount of 70% of the one that's sent out in 2021. So guys, it's a big check going to you guys. If you guys need stimulus checks, President Biden is definitely going to be sending it out to you guys very soon. And also, Senate Democrats announced that they'll be looking into legislations designed to extend the property tax and rent relief programs for many people in Pennsylvania. Currently, the law excludes homeowners if their annual income was of over $35,000, but this new proposal would actually increase limits for renters from $15,000 to $30,000, and so the proposal would aim to exclude an applicant's Social Security COLA from the definition of income. And recent COLA increases to Social Security have just pushed more applicants and some applicants to go above their income eligibility limit, and that's not a good thing, everybody. It's definitely important that lawmakers take action and address these political issues, but so far the Biden administration is kicking off its efforts toward forgiving student loan debt today, sending updates on the process via mail and before the window to apply for next month. So the Department of Education is actually working closely with the White House through the implementation process and is meeting daily. But 6 Republican-led states recently sued President Biden in an effort to block his student loan forgiveness plan from taking effect. The lawsuit was filed in a federal court in Missouri by state attorney generals from Missouri, Arkansas, Nebraska, and South Carolina, as well as legislative representatives from Ohio. Now, earlier this week, a public interest lawyer and a student loan borrower also sued the Biden administration over the student loan forgiveness plan. Under Biden's plan, individual borrowers who earned less than $125,000 and married couples who earned more than $250,000 in those years will see up to $10,000 of their federal student loan debt. If qualifying borrower also received a federal Pell Grant while enrolled in college, the individual is eligible for up to $20,000 of debt forgiveness. Pell Grants are awarded to millions of low-income students each year based on factors including their size and income and the cost charged by their college. So the Biden administration is expected to roll out the first wave of student loan forgiveness in October, and so hopefully President Biden can do something about this and help out the American people with a stimulus payment.
It can cause mental damage to the inmate who is separated from contact with other persons for long periods of time. What is your feeling on the issue? You need to turn the microphone on, and if you'll draw it a little closer to you.
Thank you. My team warned me that I needed to get used to doing that. Sorry, Mr. Chair. So the Bureau's goal, of course, is to house individuals in the least restrictive environment possible to ensure their own safety and the safety of staff and other inmates and the public. But your points are very true. Research has shown again and again and again that any type of restrictive housing can be damaging to an individual, especially those who have mental health issues. So this is a priority for me. This is a priority for me as director of the Oregon Department of Corrections. This is something we have been focused on for over a decade. We were able to, in Oregon, reduce our use of restrictive housing by 46%. So this is a complex issue. This is one I'm still getting up to speed on at the Bureau, but our values match in this topic area. So.
This morning, yesterday, the Department of Justice announced that they were going to seek stiffer sentences in prisoner abuse cases. We have, unfortunately, with Inspector General reports, ample evidence that many prison workers have been arrested, charged, or convicted of crimes including sexual abuse, murder, and introducing contraband into prisons. Tell us how you'll deal with that aspect and whether it reflects other problems such as understaffing.
Thank you, Senator. Of course, we take allegations of staff misconduct very seriously. We have a zero tolerance policy for sexual abuse of any kind. This is also something I've worked on quite substantially in my career, both when I was new to the Department of Corrections in Oregon. We were one of 2 states who had yet to make sexual misconduct in an institution a felony. As the Inspector General, I took this very seriously, ensuring that people who did engage in this type of behavior were held accountable to the greatest extent of the law. That clearly will be my philosophy here as well, Senator. We are actively participating in a work group right now assembled by the Deputy Attorney General. You referred to the request that the Deputy Attorney General and I had when we met with U.S. attorneys just a few weeks ago to please take these situations and these cases seriously, both to send a clear message to the employees that this type of behavior is unacceptable and criminal, but also to send a message to the corrections employees who come to work every day doing good work that we will fetter out this type of behavior and they will actually be safer in their institutions.
Director, I think one of the most memorable hearings we've had in this Judiciary Committee involved the Olympic gymnasts who were exploited and abused by a man who was a medical doctor named Larry Nassar. There was no sympathy for him after hearing the testimony. Last year, the Washington Post reported that Larry Nassar held over $12,800 in his prison trust account, despite owing $60,000 in restitution payments to his victims. The question Senator Grassley raised just a few minutes ago, I join him. We just learned as well last month that R. Kelly, recently convicted of even more crimes, held over $28,000 in his inmate account while owing thousands of dollars in restitution to victims. What's wrong with this system? Why are we letting these people sit on sums of money or receive money from the federal government when they're not paying their fines and they're not paying restitution?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As the Director of the Bureau of Prisons and as a former victims advocate, this issue is really important to me. We had an embarrassing low collection rate in Oregon as well, and subsequently worked with the Oregon legislature to pass legislation that increased that accountability and increased those payments while securing a reentry fund for those in our custody. So I was quite pleased when I arrived at the Bureau that the Bureau had diligently been working in concert with the Department of Justice toward changing the rules in the Inmate Financial Responsibility Program policy, which would allow collection of a set percentage of all incoming funds from participating inmates. So the BOP has been working in tandem with the U.S. Attorney's Office and other government agencies in efforts to increase those restitution collection amounts, and a proposed regulation is currently under review right now with the Department of Justice.
My time is up, but if you believe that we need to change the law so that you can effectively achieve what you've just described, let us know that. I think there's strong bipartisan sentiment that this is an outrage that Dr. Nassar would have $12,000 in the...
Amid high inflation, which has hurt Biden's job approval rating. According to Bloomberg, it's the first meeting between Biden and Powell since November. The schedule released by the White House said they will discuss the state of the economy, and the meeting comes with the country. While the country continues to struggle with rising prices and many sectors of the economy, the price of oil has risen to its highest level in 2 months, since Biden announced in late March that he would tap into the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to release 1 million barrels a day for 6 months. The Personal Consumption Price Index also rose by 6.3% over the previous year, ending in April, down slightly from the 6.6% annual inflation reported in March. The Fed has promised to raise interest rates aggressively to keep inflation in check, and Fed board members discussed the possibility of raising the federal funds by 50 basis points several more times and moving beyond a neutral monetary stance to a restrictive one. The aggressive stance taken by the central bank in recent months has put downward pressure on stocks. Republicans have repeatedly bashed Biden for rising prices, blaming his fiscal policy and the passage of the American Rescue Plan for contributing to inflation. Democratic lawmakers have responded by arguing that inflation is driven by supply chain breakdowns related to the crisis and a drop in oil and wheat supplies. Jerome Powell told lawmakers in March that the Fed should have acted sooner to contain inflation. According to the White House, during the meeting, Biden will also discuss the state of the American economy. and discuss the president's top economic priority. Addressing inflation is to transition from an historic economic recovery to stable, steady growth for working families. And gas prices at the pumps are still really high, and the state has yet to send out gas rebate checks. And I know many of you are wondering, when will rebate checks arrive? Political wrangling between Gavin Newsom and state legislators has delayed delivering relief to drivers. The governor had hoped to start sending out checks in July, but now Californians will likely not receive gas rebate checks until after summer. Back in March, Newsom said, "We are taking immediate action to get money directly into the pockets of Californians who are facing higher gas prices as a direct result of the crisis." California's pumps are currently the priciest in the nation, averaging $5.80 per gallon. According to AAA, gas prices are anticipated to soar even higher this summer. State lawmakers are still debating how the gas rebate checks will be delivered and who will receive them. The governor proposed an $11 billion relief package. Registered vehicle owners would be eligible for $400 per vehicle, capped at $800 for 2 vehicles, totaling $9 billion in direct payments to Californians. Newsom's plan would also include public transit grants that allow transit agencies to provide free rides for 3 months. State legislative leaders also have a different plan. Their plan would funnel $8 billion through the franchise tax board. Taxpayers who earn an annual salary of $125,000 or less are eligible for $200 for each dependent. To be eligible to receive the stimulus card benefits, you must be a Chicago resident and have a valid city sticker for your vehicle. Now, data provided by the City of Chicago suggests that the median household income for a family of 4 is $93,000. According to local Chicago news stations, 75% of these cards will prioritize residents in community areas that have higher mobility hardship, while the remaining 25% will be distributed citywide. Now, costly gasoline prices could hamper the United States' economic recovery if it continues. So central is the price of fuel to the household budgets for millions of people. However, with an influence of factors sparking the recent price increase, a quick remedy seems unlikely. Inflation rates have been increasing sharply since August 2021 and have been out of the normal 2 to 4% range for a full year. The Consumer Price Index rose 8.5% for the year ending in March. And now, Jerome Powell said last week, "It is our job to make sure that inflation of that unpleasant high nature doesn't get entrenched in the economy." This was after he announced a half-point interest rate hike to combat inflation. Still, people are struggling with rising costs, everywhere from the grocery store to the gas pump. Keeping prices stable is part of the Fed's mandate, but so far inflation has kept increasing higher. The GOP is already leveraging inflation to weaken Democrats heading into the midterm elections, as they argue that Biden and congressional Democrats have only caused the problem. Do you agree with this, everybody? Tell me in the comments down below. We have a ton of good news, Social Security benefits, SSI, and SSDI information that you want to know. Stay until the end of the video because you definitely don't want to miss out on this. Workers in other states will be receiving a $750 stimulus check, and just a few days ago, the office of Minnesota Governor Tim Walz confirmed that a bipartisan agreement had been made to provide frontline workers and small business owners with additional stimulus checks. In a statement, the governor said, "The state of Minnesota continues to show the country that a divided legislature can still come together to get things done. This bill provides hazard pay to frontline workers and relief for small business owners." Speaker Melissa Horman also said that the priority of the new package is to ensure that frontline workers who went to work every day, even during the worst days of the crisis, received the bonuses that they were promised last year. Now, the plan was formally approved by the Minnesota House of Representatives in February. Now, Republicans and Democrats originally couldn't agree on who could be eligible for the checks, with Democrats working to make them available to a broader range of workers. While Republicans wanted the money to be directed primarily to first responders and nurses and doctors, an estimated 667,000 workers from Minnesota will be able to claim the check. And if you've got a tax return filed, whether it was before or after the April 18th deadline, a tax refund should be headed to your way very soon. That's if you're expecting one. If you file on time, your refund money should arrive within 21 days of filing, and as long as there are no errors and you file electronically instead of direct deposit. To keep tabs on your refund, you can start tracking your refund. You can start tracking it to your bank account after the IRS begins processing your return. And the IRS has the ability to automate nearly half of tax returns. And according to the National Bureau of Economic Research, the IRS could correctly autofill an estimated 62 to 73 million returns with information that it already has. This will be covering 41% to 48% of taxpayers. So folks, if you guys found this video useful and helpful, tell me in the comments down below.
Meet this change in demand, but also to allow for social distancing and COVID safety protocols for workers. Now, as Americans have started to resume their normal lives, companies are struggling to keep up with the increased demand for goods. These supply chain issues and a worker shortage has resulted in higher prices across the economy. These issues do not fully explain some of the skyrocketing prices that we're seeing. The pandemic and the ensuing recovery have laid bare systemic problems in our economy, including market consolidation and price gouging. As our economy works to recover from the pandemic and the shocks to our supply chain, and as the world responds to Putin's reckless invasion of Ukraine, food and energy costs have skyrocketed for people around the world, including here in America and including in my district in Rhode Island.